People in groups. So welcome to AWA. How many people here know of AWA? So a few do, yeah. So AWA, Alberta Wilderness Association, is actually the oldest conservation organization in Alberta. Next year is our 60th anniversary, so we've been around for quite a while. So if you're interested in all about anything about AWA, feel free to ask me or Kennedy there on the computer. We're happy to answer your questions. That being said, I would like to introduce the publisher from Publishing, Neil Tanzania, and he's going to introduce that. Okay.
My primary title or primary occupation is putting ink on paper for other people. It's a fun job, though. I get to meet some pretty cool people. I'm going to do a real quick acknowledgement here. I'm trying to bring Frontenac's acknowledgement into line with our real beliefs system and not be as performative as some of them are. So this is an experiment. Feel free to let me know if I made a horrible mistake. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that our extended Frontenac House family lives, works, and plays on the traditional territories that many Indigenous and Métis peoples would call Turtle Island their home. This simple acknowledgement doesn't go far enough. As long as one Indigenous person feels fear and apprehension when faced with any level of authority, reconciliation is not complete. We also acknowledge that we stand with our Indigenous and Métis friends and hope that true reconciliation will in fact happen soon. So that's the official part. This book, some of the facts, Jasper, when tales were told, came to me about well over a year ago, and it sat. It's a book of short stories. Frontenac House is primarily a poetry publisher, and kind of sat and languished for a while, and not for any intent. It was just, the way things went. Jasper burned down, which was a great shock to a lot of us. I had this book. I've actually brought the manuscript out before this happened, before the tragedy happened, and we're starting to go through the short stories and deciding whether it's something we want to do. I looked at my wife, Terry Davies, sitting over there, my partner, and said, what do you think if we do this as a fundraiser? We publish this book with Beth as a fundraiser for Jasper. So I phoned Beth immediately. This was like a Friday or Saturday night. I can't remember. Sort of right after, the week after the fire. And I phoned Beth, got her in the car on the road driving frantically to somewhere in BC. Where's that? Right here.
To Nermata.
To Nermata to see her father who'd been burned out of his house. And broke into tears, if I recall. Joyful. Anyhow, the long story short, we put this book together in almost record time. Books, as some of you may know, take quite a while to come together from the manuscript being delivered, or manuscript being accepted, never mind, and being printed. So we put this together in well under 3 months. And got it to the finish line, and then our printer went, oh, we moved, and we had troubles restarting our press, and the books aren't ready. And we had to launch the next 2 days later in Ottawa with Prime Minister Joe Clark and seeing or officiating. The printer got the books to them the day of the launch, right? The books for that launch, sold all of the books at the Rideau Club. Then this event happens. Jasper, we were reading up in Jasper. The books arrived the next day, so Beth had to run around in Jasper, which fortunately isn't a huge place, and hand deliver copies to people who bought books the night before. Today, I had coupons prepared just in case we needed to sell these. Books arrived, much to my great pleasure, at about 2 o'clock, 3 or 1 o'clock this afternoon. So these books here are literally hot off the press. That's all I have. Beth is much more eloquent about group storage, so I'm pass it over.
First of all, thank you all. Wonderful to have so many people here. That makes me feel very honored and humbled. That's important. But I want to thank Terry and Neil so much for the work that they have done on this. First of all, to push it out as quickly as they did, and for supporting not only my project, but for supporting Jasper. And lots of stories about the fire, and some that will cross over with Neil. Thank you to the Alberta Wilderness Association for hosting this event. And thank you to Mount Royal for allowing me some time to write. You know, when you're caught up in the academic world, a lot of things don't get done that you really want to do. Thank you also to Rita Tarvidas and Richard Harrison for writing the blurbs in the back. And that was like one of those things. About 10 minutes. Can you do it for me? And be very graciously said yes. And thank you for all the other people who have made this book happen so quickly. I say quickly and stall a little bit because the book took actually a long time to write. It started probably more than 10 years ago, the actual writing of it. But the book started probably when I could actually listen to people telling stories. My dad arrived in Jasper in about 1952, and he was at that time a very young man. One of the things that he likes to do is get together with his buddies and tell stories. So a lot of these stories started there, and they very quickly diverged when I started writing them. And that's okay, because I think that's the way that stories are told. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to capture in this book, was that people tell stories. It's part of who we are. When those stories are told, they're always told differently. So, you know, somebody will come by and say, "Oh, Richard, I got to tell you what just happened to me," and embellish a little bit because I know what he likes to listen to. And then Richard will go home and say, "Hey, Lisa, you can't believe what Beth just told me." Well, I can't remember all the details, but I will just fill in a little bit. And so the story starts to change. And one of the things that I have found too is that the more Dad would tell these stories, the better they got. They would happen in different locations every time he told them. Different people who were involved. And not only that, then the stories start to merge. And I think, how could that have happened here at this? But you know, and so I thought that's a wonderful thing about storytelling, is because they just keep getting better. You know, I know that from reading to people and stuff, when they laugh, you think, yeah, I'm going to remember that bit and put it over here and really embellish this. So that's how the book began. So about 10 years of writing. Some of the pieces have been published in part before, but they they came nicely together as a collection. So Dad arrived in about 1952, and when you see the book cover, you'll see that he's not in this picture because the picture was taken before he got there. But you'll see it says menswear just right there. That's important. And the reason that it's important is because when he first arrived, he had a transfer from the Bay, from the Hudson Bay in Saskatchewan, Yorkton, Saskatchewan. There's no mountains in Yorkton. There's any mountains in Saskatchewan. So he arrived in the middle of the night, got on the train in Yorkton. Train bumped along for a long time, as the trains do. Middle of the night, gets off the train with his one little suitcase. That's all he had. Goes to the Athabasca Hotel where his lodgings were going to be for the first night. Woke up in the morning and said, okay, guess it's time to go to the Bay, which is basically was across the street. And stepped outside and he went, oh my God. This place. And his original plan was to work in Jasper for a couple of years and make it to the big city of Vancouver. He never left Jasper. It was paradise. Then he met my mom. They had a whole bunch of kids and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, things just keep going. And he told more stories. So that's kind of his story. So when I said look at menswear, he was running the menswear at the Bay, and he met a friend there who was working at a grocery store across the street, and they always talked about we should go out on our own. We should go out on our own, and they said, I heard that old W.S. Jeffrey is going to be selling, so they said, okay, we'll partner and we'll go take over W.S. Jeffrey. They had no. So they approached W.S. Willard and said, you know, we'd like to buy this, but we don't have any money. That's a little bit of a problem. You're buying it. And Willard said, okay, tell you what we will do is you work for me for free for 1 year, and that will be your buying in. And so they agreed. And very, very unfortunately, 2 weeks prior to the deadline of them working there for a year, his partner dropped in. It was like, what am I going to do now? There's no way that he could afford, with all these kids coming along, to buy in. And very, very luckily, a wealthy grocer from Edmonton who was retired came to Jasper because he wanted to live there because it's kind of a cool place. And he said, I will buy him out. So that's sort of how that began. So the menswear on that is where they started. Eventually, the business was doing well, and the ski business was doing really well. And so the grocer, John Clark, said, you know, Roy, you're doing really well. I'm doing well here too. And I think that the time is for you to go out on your own. So they bought the building next door. And that's the building that he is still the owner of now, Totem Ski Shop. So that's his story. That's why it was so important to me to get this picture from the archives that use as the cover. Skiing obviously is something that's really important in Jasper and has been since the early days. Some of the early skiers there would ski from Jasper to Lake Louise and do that in a day. And they were, that's a really big feat. And one of the things that they did was have ski races up and down the street. And so that's the picture. Okay, now we'll skip over the day of the fire. Jasper has had a couple of calls for evacuations over the last few years. And so I think the last one prior to this was maybe about 2 years ago. And there was a fire at a few miles out of town. And it roared up out of the Chenaman Valley and caused lots of destruction, but it didn't reach the town. that really said to people in parks and the town site that we need to build some fire breaks and do a lot of clearing. So they did start. They built a very big fire break on what they called bench, sort of at the back of town. And that was good. People thought, yeah, this is going to hold. Okay, so then lightning storm in Jasper this summer. First fire happened 11 kilometers out of town. Okay, that's okay. Everyone's together. They're bucketing like crazy from helicopters. They've got lots of people coming in, and it's almost holding. Then another lightning storm out by Athabasca Falls, 25 miles out of town. So notice 11 kilometers, miles. That's where I grew up. That's so 25 miles out of town. It started in two places, 25 miles out of town. Those fires converged. And it just went nuts after that. So, okay, looks like we're going to have to evacuate. Get ready. When they do that first call, usually you have 5 or 6 hours. And suddenly, boom, winds picked up. The converging of the fire just created tornado kind of winds, and it moved at lightning speed toward the town. The other one's coming the other way. Okay, evacuation, get out, like now. So my dad lives just a few blocks from the traffic lights. There's only one way out of town now, because the fire is coming in from the south. The fire is coming in from the east. The only way to shuffle out is toward the west. It's full tourist season. All the campgrounds are full. All the hotels are full. They're trying to push people through like a toothpaste tube, trying to get them out of there. It took my dad and my sister, who was driving him. And funny story too. She phones him up before and says, "Okay, Dad, we might have to evacuate. Get your bag of it. No problem. The bag will be up the door." She picks him up, grabs the bag, pretty light bag, throws it in, and they leave. So anyhow, we're heading out of town. To get to the traffic lights, only a few blocks away, it took 2.5 hours. And then all the way to Valemont, which is the first community along the way, it took them another, I think, 7 hours to get to Valemont. My dad just turned 90. He doesn't do that well in the car, that long. Very luckily, my sister had arranged a place for them to stay just overnight while they were heading to my sister's place. Pouring rain, absolutely pouring rain. She lives out in the country where my sister had never been before, and it just sort of snowballed like that. Eventually, they got to BC. They were evacuated for 6 weeks, and during those 6 weeks, and especially right at the beginning, as we're hearing things on the phone and all that kind of stuff of what's happening in Jasper. I was back and forth, but the first time that I went, I just said, I have to go see Dad. Even though there's no room for me, I have to go see Dad. So my husband Chris said, okay, it's important. Let's just go take the camper and we'll go. So we're heading down the road, and I'm just absolutely distressed. And this now crosses over to Neil's Neil's story. Phone rang. Hi, Neil. What's up? What's going on? And then he said, Terry's idea. Let's do the book as a fundraiser. We'll get it out as fast as we can. And then, yes, I cried. And then we were just going through interview right then. I said, okay, let's just stop some. So we stopped at a grocery store and we bought a cupcake. And then I still love those like this. We arrived at my sister's place in Naramata. My dad's on the phone. Wonder who he's talking to. It's Joe Clark and Maureen Jerry. I've been friends with my dad for many years. In fact, Dad was Joe's official agent for 20 years. So they've known each other for a long time. How are you doing, Roy? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Do you want to talk to Maureen? I said, absolutely, I do. So talked to Maureen for a little bit, and she said, we're going to do a fundraiser in Ottawa. And tell me when the book is out and we'll organize this. So she organized, and Chris and I stayed at her house, which was just astounding. And I was so intimidated. Anyhow, so there we were. First of all, an event at Perfect Books. Missed a tiny little bit in the story. So I'll have to indulge. So when I talked to Neil, he said, yeah, we want to do it as a fundraiser. We're going to donate every bit of profits that we would make. So I said, I will donate my royalties because I really need to do this. That will make me feel good. So then now Perfect Books, it's being organized by Perfect Books in the bookstore for a signing. And Jim Sherman, the owner of Perfect Books, said, I will too. I cried again. So the event at the bookstore was fantastic. The books arrived just when I did, and sold out there. Go to the event that Joe and Maureen had organized, now I was really intimidated. All 6 senators from Alberta were there. At the MP for Jasper Yellow Bay was there. Elizabeth May was there. And then there were countless dignitaries, senators, ministers, and it was one of those incredible events where you felt like, okay, and here comes Elton John. So that's how the launch began. Last week I was in Jasper again, I have been back many times. A third of the town burned. Some people lost houses and businesses, some of those people have said, I'm too old. We can't go back, which is very sad. But there are some good stories and happy stories too. One of my small happy stories was just after the fire happened, we had a company called Rescon was working in Jasper, where they dig through the rubble, and they say, okay, that place is safe right there in that corner. So you hire them to dig for an hour. Very luckily, from my parents' house, it burned completely to the ground. There was absolutely nothing left except for the stonework around the property and the stone fireplace. They said, but we can dig in this area. Where do you want us to dig? And I said, okay. There's a slate pool table there, first pool table in Jasper. I think under that he kept a few things, and right above would have been his dresser where he had some of them. So they dug there, and they found very few things in very bad shape. One of them was a brooch that Mom used to wear, that brooch was all melted on the back, and it was covered in crust and just fire and debris stuff. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try to restore this piece. With the help of my very good friend right there, we restored this piece. That's the story of the fire, without too many embellishments. It was pretty long. And in fact, driving up there the first time, I had to stop on the side of the highway and cry. And I seem to be doing a lot of that. And just look around. And I thought, I don't even know where I am, because there are no police. So it was really tough. But anyway, that's me talking. I want to read to you a little bit of one of the stories to give you a sense of of what I was doing and making up characters. In quite a while ago, and I don't even remember the date of this because you never remember in stories. Jasper as a small place, you're not too late, Kate, come on in. They want in Jasper, they wanted to build, they wanted to hold the Canadian ski championships. For them to be able to do that, what they had to do was have a chalet. Jasper, they just had and a ski. So they decided, okay, we'll fundraise to do this. And so one of the things that I did was take that event, invent some characters that I had so much fun to, and imagined what it would be like to do the fundraising and hold the event. So this is the bit from the middle of the middle of the story. The characters that I have here, Johnny B, he's the kind of guy who will fish out a season. He will do everything he possibly can to have a lot of fun his own way. And he's one of the ones that's involved in securing a bank loan from a bank. The banker is Wazenchinsky, it's the name of the bank. Made Wazenchinsky has a wife who wants to be, the nicest dressed at any banquet and wearing all her new clothes and all that kind of stuff. And she gets in a little bit of a tussle with Gertie Brown. Gertie Brown is one of those characters that just seem to know everything before they happen. So one of the things that Johnny B claps Owen on the back as they are walking down the steps from the bank. Piece of cake, Owen, my boy. Didn't I tell you it would be? Buzz is going to kill us, Johnny B. 20,000 smackaroos. We'll probably go to jail. And he even sold our membership. At first, Buzz laughs when they tell him, but he isn't in a month of Sundays going to sign. And if that Wazenchowski even touches his account, there'll be hell to pay. Hell thinks Owen, more for him and Johnny B than Wazenchowski. Hell, worse than purgatory. Throughout the spring, Owen cycles up to Whistler a few times a week, watches the pit being dug in the concrete poured. Once foundations are in, that's when the volunteers lend a hand. Now, when I say volunteers, you have to understand that this isn't a big team. It's just a few guys holding boards and handing over the nails. Buzz is the one doing a lot of the backbreaking work. Buzz and a few others mostly hired on. But it's coming along and on schedule. It's Owen's task to raise the money to pay off the loan. Owen is at work, outside of the Hudson's Bay, polishing clean the windows. It's not my dad outside the Hudson's Bay. I don't think. He likes this part of the job, his regular job, standing with the occasional rumble of the trains shifting in the tracks, and the simple satisfaction of getting all the smudges off the glass. Now, Owen, he hears. And he whirls around to see Gertie Brown. You staring at me, Owen? Gertie Brown is dressed sensibly. In her sensible brown Oxfords, brown knee-length skirt, buttoned-up blouse and thick wool cardigan, a stiff leather handbag slung over her arm. But her hair looks as if she has just removed the pin curlers only moments ago and hasn't taken the time to brush out the curls. And as always, she has that crazy-looking dog of hers, and it's now sniffing Owen's pant leg. Of course not, Mrs. Brown. Of course I wouldn't stare. You look like you're staring, Owen. Not a cloud in the sky, Mrs. Brown. You're doing it all wrong. Mrs.? Now he's very conscious of staring, and he doesn't know where to look. Poochie, her dog, has jumped up and left dog prints on his trouser leg. He's unsure if he should brush them off with Gertie Brown looking at him. Then Poochie starts humping his leg. You don't get what you don't ask for. Ask Mrs. Brown? And now we can't look at the dog either. Yes, ask Mrs. Brown. Memberships, Owen? To the ski club? You selling any other memberships? Owen fumbles in his breast pocket for for the booklet and a pen. Incredible. The dog has stopped, sits close to Owen's foot. Old Mrs. Brown, thinks Owen, Stanley long dead, wants a membership. Can't imagine what for, and he definitely can't imagine her on skis. It's just a bunch of guys, a couple of adventurous girls, and she doesn't fit. Memberships. You won't even build a shed. 12. Gertie's will be number 13. Not that one, Owen. Give me the one up next in the book. She says as she peels open a folded up fiver from her purse. I don't like 13s. Owen fills out her name on the 14th membership. You write Gertie with an I. The dog growls a bit. Now, Poochie, he's not any trouble yet. Owen looks at the dog, who seems to be smiling. Yeah, he's definitely smiling. Owen gets a little nervous around the two of them. Bonds, says Gertie. She snaps the clasp on her handbag. And you, Owen, you will never get that shirt clean. Owen looks at his shirt. It's just come back from the dry cleaner, so it's still stiff with starch. Sees nothing, nothing. When he looks up, Gertie Brown and Poochie are rounding the corner of the bay. Bonds, said Owen to the empty space. They arrived with equipment for both women who meet at the base of the ski hill. It's a lovely warm day of clear blue skies and very little wind. Owen expects Gertie Brown to be wearing her old wool skirt, but both women are dressed in ski clothes of the year, baggy-legged pants with tight ankles tucked into their new leather ski boots. I hope you two weren't staring at us, says Gertie Brown. Owen should have expected this. He smiles. Beautiful sweater, he says. Owen doesn't recognize the sweaters as town merchandise, so they must have got the mail order since its ears. The women are giggling like schoolgirls. Look, says Johnny B, you take that one and I'll take the banker's wife. Owen isn't certain which is worse, teaching Gertie Brown or Mrs. Wozinchinsky, or why the women want to do this, but he does know why he and Johnny B are punished. The signing of the bank loan has not been resolved. Buzz has his way of putting off the banker, but if they default on the loan, Wozinchinsky himself will be on the hook for not subscribing to bank rules and likely would lose his position at the bank. Each time Owen hears Wozinchinsky's name, his gut tightens. He doesn't seem to be able to raise much money to pay the loan. A couple of fundraisers, bake sale, and a charity dance with the local band have not brought in as much money as he hoped. But perhaps the real money will come in once the chalet is open. The worry is still very present. Johnny B seems less bothered and more easily rolls with whatever comes his way. It's Wozinchinsky that's put the women up to the fiasco. Once the snow starts, he surprises Johnny B where Johnny B usually is at 4:01 on any given day. Happy hour at the Alpha B. I guess rightly that I'd find you here, says the banker. Just about to be going. Really, Johnny B. He sets his briefcase on the table in front of him. Come to have a beer, Johnny B says nervously. No, I've come to see you. Just got a minute. Got things going on. I see, he says, looking at the pints of beer in front of Johnny B. In front of B. I have a proposal for you. That's how it started. Owen fusses around with the straps to the skis while he waits to see what instructions Johnny B gives. Johnny B is a bit hard of hearing, tending to talk very loudly, so in this case it's advantageous. While Owen has learned to ski, this is his first time instructing, and his clients are making him very nervous. Set the skis perpendicular to the slope, says Johnny B. The detail might seem obvious, but not to a non-skier. Yes, and jam the sides of them into the snow, just like this. Watch me. Johnny B takes his wooden ski, holds it in the air, and looks down its length, as if doing so will bring on something miraculous. It doesn't, at least as far as Owen can tell. Then Johnny B dramatically swoops down and jams the side of the ski into the snow. Mrs. Wozinkowski follows suit and stage pauses, looking over at Gertie, waiting for her friend to look at her. Owen explains to Gertie Brown that when the skis are set so, they're less likely to run away before you get strapped in. Seems to take a long time to do the simplest things. It's not that easy manipulating the feet of big women. He hears Johnny B. Through this loop, back through this one, around the boot, and buckle the strap here. And then Mrs. Wozinchinsky is a heap in the snow, but she is laughing. Johnny B manages to pull her back upright, but she snaps the ski pole. Don't worry, Mrs. You can use one of mine, I can make another. They were cheap enough at the hardware store, but Johnny B was like that. He claimed he could make just about anything. In fact, even as a youth, Johnny B was making things. He made his own skis, as some people did in those days, steaming a couple of pieces of lumber to bend the tips to the right shape. Story has it that Johnny B, or it might have been his dad, but that's the way the stories go, taking on their own identities. Made his skis in the kitchen, got a big fire going in the cook stove and steamed them for days, right next to the bottomless pit of boiling cabbage. There was so much steam in the house that in the middle of the night, after the third day, there was a great kaboom as the ceiling plaster and half the wall came crashing down. Johnny's mother was so angry, not because he ruin the kitchen, but he spoiled her soup. And what were they going to eat the rest of the week? Johnny B and his father had to take their creations elsewhere, but nothing stops Johnny B. Owen and Gertie Brown watched Johnny B and Mrs. Wozinchinsky. Then Owen shows Gertie Brown the strapping of the left boot to the left ski. Thank heaven she successfully manages the other on her own. Owen isn't comfortable standing so near to her, a woman of her size and less comfortable crouching around her feet. So far, she hasn't fallen over. Owen buckles his own skis and begins explaining the awkward sidestepping up the slope a short distance so that she can get the feel of the balance that's in her turn. Johnny B, however, is heading Mrs. Wozinchinsky straight over to the rope tow, slowly in a wide slope off. The rope tow is Johnny B's creation, an old car jacked up so the wheels turn, a rope around the hub, and at the top of the hill, a bull wheel. He's always the first one there when the hill opens for business, starting up the engine, collecting the 25 cents to ski for the evening, and then shutting things down on time. Today is Saturday, so the rope tow runs for a few hours during the day. This is mostly when the families come out, a bunch of kids on toboggans and a few are on skis. There's a shack near the bottom with a concession for hot chocolate and hot dogs. It's close to where the foundation of the chalet has been poured and the sides almost up. The kid on skis whizzes by a huge German smile. He sees Owen and waves back. Owen, says Gertie Brown, pay attention, get me over there. We're not ready yet, he says. Marjorie is ready. We are ready. She pushes off, arms akimbo and legs 2 feet apart, directly toward Johnny B and Mrs. Wozinchinsky. Picking up speed as she gets closer and closer. The predictable happens. And I will tell you what happens. So help yourself. And Neil will be there, or Terry. And again, thank you so much.
So thank you everybody for coming. Just remember that all the sales go for the fundraiser. We're happy to support that. I had a couple of questions about the big grizzly bear in the corner. So I think I'll address the elephant in the room. So this beautiful piece was created by a local artist in Alberta many moons ago, and has been a feature in many of our events over the years. There's actually an article written about the artist on that table over there if you want to take a look at it. But his name is K.C. For Kaministas County. It has a wooden interior. It's made of papier-mâché and faux fur. So it is a wonderful piece. It was in our storage for a long time, and every time we open the storage locker, it was so Kennedy, one of our conservation specialists, was very energized and wanted to put it together. We had a Christmas market here last weekend, so we got it put together just before that. So because it takes a lot of work to put together and take down, we've decided to leave it up for a while. But you're welcome to take a closer look. And if you have any questions about AWA, feel free to ask. We publish a quarterly journal called Wildlands Advocate. So feel free to grab a copy on the way out if you're interested. Help yourself to candy cane, and there's hot water if you want your hot chocolate. And Beth, thank you so much. That was a lovely reading and wonderfully embellished stories. And Neil, thanks for reaching out. Wonderful.
us online. Come and see me and I can make sure you get the book, without waiting. Otherwise, I'll be hand delivering books. It'll be a fun time.
Okay, too.